Every man, at some point, stands in front of the mirror and asks himself the exact same question. Not do I look tired, not am I getting old, the real question, the quiet one, the one that sits in your chest at 2 a.m. when the house is silent. Am I ahead or am I behind? It is the question nobody says out loud, because saying it out loud feels like admitting you might already know the answer. But here is the truth. You cannot answer that question with a feeling. You can only answer it with a number. So today, we are going to use the hard data from the Office for National Statistics, the ONS, to show you exactly where the average British man stands, at 30, at 40, at 50, and at 60. By the end of this video, you will know your number, and you will know whether you are winning the race or whether it is time to change the way you run it. So let us begin. First, we need to define the game we are actually playing, because most men get this completely wrong. They think wealth is about salary. It is not. Your salary is just how fast money flows through your hands. Your net worth is how much sticks. Think of your net worth as your total score. It is everything you own minus everything you owe. On one side of the scale, you have your assets, the equity in your home, your private pension wealth, your ISA, the cash sitting in your account. On the other side, you have your liabilities, your mortgage, your student loan, that credit card you swear you will clear next month. Assets minus liabilities. That is your number, that is your score, and that is the only number that tells the truth. Now, let us put the average British man on the scale. We will start at the beginning, age 30, the debt versus equity stage. At 30, the average British man has a net worth of around £35,000. And if that number feels low to you, there is a reason. This is the hardest, most brutal phase of the entire journey. This is where the storm hits. Because at 30, most men are dragged backwards by what we call the student loan anchor. You spent your 20s trying to build forward momentum, while a slice of every payslip was quietly pulled back by the exchequer to service a debt you took on at 18, before you even understood what compound interest meant. And at the very same moment, you are fighting the hardest financial battle of your life, the first house deposit. You are trying to save tens of thousands of pounds for a property whose price keeps running away from you. So at 30, your score is low, your debt is high, and your equity is barely beginning. This is not failure, this is the foundation. Every empire is ugly when you are still digging the basement, age 40, the traction stage. Then something changes. At 40, the average British man's net worth jumps to around £160,000. Read that again, from 35,000 to 160,000 in a single decade. What happened? Property happened. This is the stage where your home stops being a cost and starts becoming an engine. For the first 10 years, your mortgage felt like a wall you were throwing money at. But somewhere in your late 30s, the equity in your home quietly began to outpace your savings. Every monthly payment now chips away at the debt, while the value of the bricks rises underneath you. This is the moment the average man stops swimming against the current and finally feels the water start to carry him. This is traction. This is the decade where the work you did at 30 finally begins to pay you back. Age 50, the peak wealth stage, and then comes the explosion. At 50, the average British man's net worth reaches around £380,000, more than double what it was at 40. This is what I call the compounding miracle. For 2 decades, you have been quietly feeding 2 giants without really noticing. Your workplace pension scheme, and for the disciplined ones, a SIPP, a self-invested personal pension. For years, these felt invisible, numbers on a statement you barely opened. But money, given enough time, does something that feels almost unfair. It starts to grow on its own growth. The returns earn returns. The snowball that took 30 years to get rolling is now the size of a house, tearing down the mountain on its own momentum. At 50, your private pension wealth and your property wealth are no longer streams, they are rivers. This is your peak earning power, meeting your peak compounding power. For most men, this is the most powerful financial decade they will ever have. Do not waste it. Age 60, the finish line stage. And finally, we arrive. At 60, the average British man's net worth stands at around £650,000. This is the stage where the war you have been fighting your whole adult life finally goes quiet. For the lucky and the disciplined, the mortgage is gone, mortgage-free. Those 2 words that felt like a fantasy at 30 are now your reality. The full weight of your property equity is now yours, clean and unburdened, and your pension pot has swollen to its largest size, sitting there, waiting, as you make the final preparations for retirement. At 60, you are no longer building the machine. You are checking the fuel, reading the dials, and getting ready to finally stop running. £650,000. That is the average British man's finish line. So, how do you feel? Ahead or behind? Before you answer, I have to tell you something, because these numbers I just gave you, they are hiding a lie. A beautiful, comforting, dangerous lie. Here comes the brutal twist. Everything I just told you was the mean average, and the mean is a trick. Here is how the trick works. Imagine 10 ordinary men standing in a room. Now Jeff Bezos walks in. On paper, the average man in that room is now a billionaire, but not a single real person in that room got any richer. That is exactly what is happening to these national figures. The mean is being violently dragged upward by the wealthiest 1%. Those numbers are not the average man's life. They are the average that includes the men in the mansions. So let us strip the billionaires out. Let us look at the median, the man standing in the exact middle, the real Brit. When you look at the median, the picture gets much more honest and much more sobering. The real man at 30 does not have 35,000. He has closer to £18,000. At 40, the median is not 160,000. It is closer to £95,000. At 50, that towering £380,000 figure shrinks down to a median nearer £220,000. And at 60, the real finish line for the middleman is not 650,000. It is closer to £410,000. That gap between the mean and the median is the gap between the story the headlines tell you and the life most men actually live. So if you felt behind a moment ago, look again. You may be far closer to the real center than you ever realized. But even the median hides one final variable: geography. Because a net worth means something completely different, depending on where you stand on this island. £650,000 in the northeast can mean a paid-off home, a comfortable retirement, and money left to spare. That same £650,000 in London might be a one-bedroom flat and a tight monthly budget. The number on your scoreboard is only half the story. The cost of the life around that number is the other half. The regional multiplier means two men with the identical net worth can live two completely different lives. So here is the lesson, the one I want you to carry out of this video. Your net worth at 60 is not decided at 60. It is decided at 30. It is decided by the man in the mirror right now, at this exact moment, watching this screen. It is decided by whether you treat your ISA and your pension as something for later or something for today. By whether you let the student loan anchor define you, or whether you build equity in spite of it. Because in the end, this was never a race against the average. The average man, the mean, the median, the figures from the ONS, they are just landmarks on the road. The only race that has ever mattered is the race against the man you could have been. So stop asking the mirror if you are ahead or behind, and start asking it the only question that actually changes the score. What am I going to do today? Did you learn something from this video? Don't forget to like and subscribe.